Have you?
East Austin. Let's roll it from Nelson Field, where LBJ had a 14-7 advantage at halftime. We'll pick it up in the third quarter. Jaguars, first possession of the quarter. Demone Odoms finds Rodney Hill. Nice reception, some nice moves, and he'll take it all the way down to the Reagan 1-yard line. Terrence Hill took it in for the score, 20-7. LBJ led it. Reagan came back later in the same quarter. Tony Green takes the pitch from Lewis Hickman. No one's going to catch him until it's too late. He'll take it all the way for the touchdown. Pull the Raiders within 20-14, but that was all the scoring. LBJ hung on to win it, 20-14 over Reagan. Well, tonight in Round Rock, Dragons were facing Johnston of Georgetown, where the Eagles hosted Del Valle. We'll pick this one up in the first quarter after Georgetown had blocked a punt. First play from scrimmage, Chris Kincaid, utilizing some good blocking, takes it in from 7 yards out to make it 7-0 Eagles. Later in the first quarter, Georgetown on the attack again. Mike Gilmore on the counter play. And he's in the open. Watch him go. The Cardinals will. A 49-yard touchdown. Georgetown rolling over Del Valle tonight, 28-6. All right, Sky 7 also visiting Elgin this evening. Wildcats hosting Marble.
Good evening, and we're back. Friday football fever, back for its third season. Let's get busy. Plenty of action to bring to you. Let's get started. We go first to House Park, where Westwood was playing against the Austin High Marines. Mike Gilmore also scored in this game. Watch the cross buck. He comes up the middle, and he's gone. 48 yards for the touchdown. Georgetown went on to a 28-6 win over Del Valle. New Braunfels was playing at Pflugerville. The Panthers had a hard time getting on the field. That's because their banner broke a little bit early. But they didn't have a problem getting downfield. Quarterback Peter Brand lets it fly. Jason Brennan is on the run, and he's got it for a 71-yard touchdown. New Braunfels tried to come back, and they tried to come back hard. Watch this run by Kyle Herman. He goes through one. He comes up on another, spins away, through another. Nice 19-yard run, but the Panthers intercepted the pass 2 plays later. It was 7-0 at the half. New Braunfels scored in the second half to pull this game off by the final score of 10-7.
The same idea. Laura Communications is proud to present the 1990 edition of Georgetown Eagle football.
It's Ted Coy, Jimmy Carmichael, and David McCaskill, and this is Georgetown Eagles football, 1991 style. You know, last year was our inaugural season of televising these football contests for Coach Al Hunt's Eagles, and we saw a super year as they went into the third round of the state playoffs. We're delighted to be back again this year, and we know that we'll see some real exciting football tonight, particularly when the Georgetown Eagles take on these Del Valle Cardinals. And David McCaskill, you've been watching the Georgetown Eagles practice this summer. What do they look like?
Well, Cliff, this year we should see a more balanced attack than we saw last year. Last year we saw primarily a run-oriented offense. This year we're going to see more of a balanced attack. Georgetown should throw the ball probably about 50% of the time. One other thing we should look at while we go through the game is that there'll be more receivers in the pattern. One thing on defense, we have an excellent defensive line. The defensive line is highly touted as being very strong. They look good in the scrimmages. One thing, though, that a lot of these players are going to have to go both ways for a while. So towards the end of the game, we're going to see how that conditioning comes into effect this early into the season.
All right, now, Ted Coy, I know that you have talked with the Del Valle Cardinals coach, and you have looked at the scouting report. What are we going to see from them tonight?
Cliff, Del Valle is looking at this game as a chance to start over. Last year they had a very disappointing 0-10 season, but this year most of those players are back and they are looking for a chance to redeem themselves. Coach Lance Allison has 17 returning starters from last year, and from the offense and defense of last year they have 10 of the 11 starters back. They've had a very good and productive off-season program, and they're looking forward to getting this season started. They run a very wide open version of the run and shoot offense, and they like to spread things out and get the ball in the air. Key players to watch are Chris Jones, wide receiver, Mark Harnsby, the lineman, and Kevin Atwood is a man we'll hear a lot from tonight, both on offense and defense. There's a lot of questions to be answered by Del Valle as far as what they can do on offense and defense, but one thing for sure, and that is they, like Georgetown, is anxious to get this game and this season started, and it's time to play football.
Well, there can be no doubt about it. We're going to see some exciting football tonight and for the rest of the season. Now, before we go back up to the booth for our opening kickoff, here's a close look at all these 1991 Georgetown Eagles.
Cliff Jagger, I'm quarterback, defensive back, and I'm a junior.
T.D. Taylor, I'm a wide receiver, defensive back, I'm a junior.
Mike Grimes, junior, defensive back and punter.
Mac Russell, junior, wide receiver, and defensive back.
Chad Whiteside, defensive back, running back, and I'm junior.
I'm Wade Cloverson. I play wing back, defensive back, and I'm a junior.
Troy Miller, linebacker, fullback, junior.
Wes Blackwell, middle linebacker, fullback, senior.
Chad Sullivan, defensive end and halfback.
Mike Gilmore, play fullback and wing back and linebacker, and I'm a senior.
Chris Kincaid, wing back, defensive back, senior.
John Mark Zedlitz, quarterback, defensive back, junior.
Brandon Newsom, linebacker, tight end, junior.
Ben Nipscher, sophomore, fullback, and strong safety.
James Arp, junior, wing back, defensive back.
Ryan Sawyer, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, senior.
Stephen Heyman, center, linebacker, senior.
Richard Allen, offensive and defensive tackle, and I'm a sophomore.
Mike Stanford, I'm a senior. I play offensive guard and defensive linebacker.
Wayne Herndon, offensive and defensive tackle, and I'm a senior.
Monroe Matter, offensive guard, defensive tackle, senior.
Matt Stockton, a senior, offensive guard and defensive end.
Jason Smith, senior, offensive guard, defensive end.
Scott Funtner, junior, linebacker, and offensive guard.
Stoney Williams, offensive guard, defensive tackle, junior.
Doak Walker, defensive end, offensive tackle, senior.
Jeff Moran, center, defensive end, and junior.
Rich Elsasser, offensive tackle, defensive end, senior.
My name is Mark Cox. I play offensive tackle and defensive tackle, and I'm a senior.
Jimmy Dice, offensive tackle and defensive tackle, and I'm a senior.
Jason Jarrells, defensive end, center, and junior.
John Mesker, offensive tackle, defensive tackle, senior.
Mike Tippett, tight end, linebacker, I'm a senior.
My name is Rob Wooten, play tight end and rover, senior.
Ben Munoz, defensive back, wide receiver, I'm a senior.
Paul Connor, tight end, defensive end, junior.
Leonard Rhodes, coach defensive lineman.
John Baskin, coach the secondary.
Jim Ward, defensive coordinator.
Paul Parsons, offensive line, also work with the sophomore team.
Frank Ivada, I work with wide receivers and JV offense.
Rich Frazee, I'm the athletic trainer.
Al Hunt, head football coach, and running backs and quarterbacks.
Journey to the center of the earth. Underground arm.
To come out onto the field, we kick off our second season of telecasting these Georgetown Eagles football contests. And what an exciting year this hopefully will be for Coach Al Hunt's team. And along with Ted Coy and Jimmy Carmichael, we're up here in the booth getting ready for the Eagles to come onto the field. And I don't know about you, Jimmy, but I'm looking forward to it.
Cliff, it's a beautiful night for high school football here in Georgetown, Texas, and I know the fans have been waiting for this a long time. Georgetown had a great season last year, got into the playoffs, and the coaches and the fans are looking forward to a carryover from last year, so I think we're all excited about tonight's game.
Now, I know, as usual, Ted Coy, you've done your homework, and you know a great deal about these Del Valle Cardinals, and you might want to share some of that information with us that you have.
Del Valle is definitely coming into this game with a lot of potential, but a lot of question marks to prove. They're going up against a very fine and solid Georgetown Eagle offense and defense. Last year, Coach Lance Allison, in his first year, went to a wide open version of the run and shoot offense, and it was very unproductive for them. They were 0-10. They lost all the games of the season. He went into an off-season program and visiting with him before the game. He talked about the off-season program that he put his players through. He feels very confident that there are a much improved version. Of course, how much improved is yet to be determined. On the other hand, Georgetown with Coach Al Hunt is looking at this game as one to really pick up from where they left off last year, and they do look at it with a lot of enthusiasm.
Now, Jimmy, you have a lot of experience when it comes to high school playoffs because you were on 2 state championship teams. How much of that is carried over from one season to another?
Cliff, a lot of it carries over. Even the young ball players that didn't see much action on the field last year went on the trips with the varsity team. They got the experience. They saw what it was like to get into the playoffs. It gives them a lot to shoot for. A team, conversely, a team that does not get into the playoffs, their players don't have a whole lot to look forward to. They don't know what it really takes and what it's really like to get into those playoff games. I think you're going to see that carry over quite a bit to this Georgetown football team. What I'm wondering about tonight, fellas, is that Georgetown had such an easy time with this team last year, and Del Valle is not ranked very highly this year. Do you think there's a chance that Georgetown may be overlooking this team, maybe looking forward to next week's football game?
You know, that's always a possibility as the two teams come out for the opening kickoff. Del Valle won the toss, by the way, and selected to receive. Georgetown will kick off. And Ted, what do you think about that?
That's very true what Jimmy was pointing out, but at the same time, I think we got a very disciplined Georgetown team that is going to have themselves prepared, and especially with this the start of the game, I think they're very anxious.
West Blackwell's kick is high and down the middle. It's coming to Anthony Murrell at the 10-yard line.
And we're underway for 1991.
I believe 8 of the Georgetown football players on the field that time were in on the tackle and stopped Murrell at the 22-yard line, 23-yard line.
Now, fellas, we talked during the scrimmages before the season began how Georgetown appeared to have a lot of experience in their starting lineups, but they might have a depth problem. What do you think?
No question. This year, Coach Al Hunt and Coach Jim Ward are sending a lot of players on the field initially that are going to have to be playing both ways. What they are both hoping is that as the season progresses in the early games, that some of the younger players will come on and be able to be used to spell the starters that are having to start and go play both ways on offense and defense.
Del Valle has a little problem lining up on their first series here. Eric White takes the snap and pitches back to Kevin Atwood around left end.
Are they going to test those corners early against Georgetown?
Cliff, with the speed that they have, I'm sure they're going to test the corners and the safeties also. I understand that Del Valle still runs their pass and shoot offense, and they're going to be trying to get the ball deep. They're going to be trying to hit the corners and try and take advantage of their speed advantage tonight.
Well, if memory serves me correctly, they scored first on Georgetown last year, and then the Eagles took over and went away with a lopsided victory. Looks like a blitz this time.
Sprint right, passes in the flats to Angelo Strojan. I believe that's going to be completed, but it's going to be for a loss of about 2 yards. It's going to bring up 3rd down and about 12 yards.
We're seeing a little bit of the swarming and the intensity of the Georgetown defense, which was so characteristic last year. And that's the exact kind of defense that is necessary to defend the wide open play that Del Valle is trying to get started with their offense.
3rd and 13, Jimmy.
It's a short 13.
Yeah, short 13.
If that's possible.
Well, they're going to test that secondary right off the bat, aren't they?
That's right. White's going to sprint left.
There's a little shovel pass. That's what it looked like, a little shovel pass.
Yeah, I think they wanted a little bit more space, and Lamont Norwood was the receiver on that pass, and He didn't have enough room to get around in. He tried to turn up, and he's going to be way short of that first down marker.
You know, Ted, David McCaskill was saying before the kickoff that we should expect a more balanced offense from Coach Al Hunt, but the defense has been the strength of this ball club for at least the last 2 years, and it looks like it's not going to change.
That's so true. You know, the old saying, offenses sell tickets, defenses win championships. Look at it. That ball can be advanced.
And there's a first break for the Georgetown Eagles.
And that's a huge break for them right there. You can't start the season off any better than that.
Cliff, as that play developed, we were just talking about the staunch defense that Georgetown has, and certainly an illustration there. Definitely a big part of the kicking game is to block the punt.
And that gives them a first down on the Del Valle 7-yard line. We have 8:57 left in this initial quarter of the first game of 1991. And the Georgetown Eagles are in prime scoring position, Jimmy.
They sure are, Cliff. They're going to come out with a new quarterback this year. Cliff Jager takes over. He's a junior. He's got a strong arm, and I believe the coaches are real high on Cliff. He's got a good 2 seasons ahead of him, and I think he's going to be a very fine quarterback for Georgetown. Wes Blackwell is in the tailback position, but the pitch, I believe, is going to come to...
Oh, there he goes, Jimmy. There he goes.
Touchdown.
He made it look easy. He made it look easy. So the Georgetown Eagles draw first blood with 8:46 left in the opening quarter. Going in from 7 yards out, and what did we have that time, Ted?
Tell you what, you can, among all the first game excitement, Chris Kincaid is definitely excited. Being able to score the first time he carries the ball, it's quite a feeling.
The kick is up, it's good.
We do have a flag.
8:46 left in the first quarter.
That flag almost made it through the uprights. That official has a good arm on him this year.
You're right. I was just about to call the point good, and you saw the yellow flag. Well, you might have heard the PA announcer said it was offside against Del Valle. Georgetown refuses the penalty. Our score with 8:46 left in the first quarter, the Georgetown Eagles 7, the Del Valle Cardinals 0. Let's pause for this timeout as the Georgetown Eagles prepare to kick off, and I believe there was a penalty on the extra point play, and Jimmy, kind of clarify that for us.
Well, Cliff, there was offsides on the Del Valle on the extra points, and when the kicking team makes the extra point, then obviously they don't want to take the play over again. The penalty then is marked off on the ensuing kickoff. So now Georgetown is going to be kicking off from their own 45 instead of their 40-yard line, and we'll see if Wes Blackwell can get this kick close to the end zone anyway. He's going to be kicking off again to number 3 for Del Valle, which is Anthony Morrell. And this is a good kick going all the way into the Del Valle end zone, and Morrell downs it right there for a touchback.
Now, Ted, I know that we have some new rules, as we do every year in high school football, and during the course of our telecast tonight, maybe you could touch on some of those rule changes, and some of them are very interesting this year.
Yes, they are, Cliff. They're also very hard to explain. One of the most significant changes is that...
We'll let Jimmy explain it.
Yes, on 4th down, or when the ball is inside the 5-yard line, it cannot be fumbled forward and recovered by the fumbling team unless the player who fumbles it recovers it. Now, that's a mouthful, but we'll get to that later.
Atwood again at tailback. The give is to him over left guard, and he is stopped right there. Monroe Meadow was on the stop, and he played that running play just like you draw it up, Ted.
Yeah, Monroe is definitely expected to make some big plays, and he is certainly showing that early in this game.
Brings up a 2nd down and 10, Jimmy.
We have a no-back formation there for Del Valle. Quick pass, good pass pattern that time. Over the middle of James Harris, and Harris gets all the way out to the 42-yard line.
Boy, Ted, that's what makes Del Valle dangerous. They can pop you so quick, so fast with that kind of an attack.
Very true, Cliff, and this is exactly what Coach Lance Olson counts on. As Jimmy pointed out, they had a no backfield formation, and the problem with those type offenses is, as we just saw, is they can hit you quick and make some big yards.
Now wait a minute, fellas, is this for real a no pass, no gain offense?
Well, the quarterback right now is 3 for 3 for 20 yards. Pitch again goes to Atwood. Atwood is an excellent athlete. They're going to be going to him. In fact, Georgetown has their work cut out for him tonight. They don't know whether to defend against the pass or try to defend against Atwood.
Well, that was a big gain for the Del Valle Cardinals. It gives them first down inside the Georgetown Eagles territory on about the 45 and a half, 46.
Yeah, they're showing a good momentum on this drive. They've come back out after the touchdown, after the disappointing block kick and the touchdown by Georgetown, and they're moving the ball real strong on this series.
Yeah, they have. They're looking pretty crisp right now, aren't they, Ted?
Yes, they are. They are really bouncing back.
Pitch comes back to Atwood. He makes a couple of good moves. Bounces off 3, 4 tacklers, and finally is brought down at the 40-yard line. I believe the tackle there was led by number 11, T.D. Taylor, for the Georgetown Eagles.
And a host of other Eagle defenders as they swarm Atwood. Kevin Atwood is the type of player that definitely has to be respected wherever he is on the field. And I think we're going to see a whole lot more of him tonight.
Didn't Atwood last year during this game score on a 96-yard pass and a run?
That was the opening first part of the game where they went up 6-0, but fortunately Georgetown came back.
And there's the first incompletion of the game. The pass was intended for James Harris, but it was well over his head. There is a flag on the play. As the umbrellas come out, fellas, I believe we've got a little rainstorm that's come overhead.
Well, and you know, that's very interesting because last year we were very fortunate. We had no rain at any games during the season, including the playoffs. Here we are, our first contest, and the skies are cloudy and it's beginning to pour down.
You know what there's always a discussion of which team is affected most by the rain. And I think definitely Del Valle, with the way they like to put the ball in the air and move it around, may have to take a little consideration about the wet ball in the rain as we see here.
Ted, you're exactly right. I think Del Valle is going to be a high turnover type of offense, and a rainstorm like this is really going to hurt them. Unfortunately, I don't think the rain's going to last long, but right now I think the advantage definitely swings to Georgetown. Fellas, I didn't know they had this many umbrellas in Georgetown. Look at all these umbrellas. I think everybody came prepared tonight.
You know, speaking of the crowds, once again, we have a full stadium on the Georgetown side, which indicates the kind of fan support that the Eagles get every year, and it's a delight to see them here. Well, there's timeout on the field with our score. The Georgetown Eagles 7, the Del Valle Cardinals 0. We'll be back after this timeout. As the rain continues to pour here, we're 6:23 in the first quarter of our contest between Del Valle and Georgetown, and a potentially good drive by the Cardinals has stalled just a little bit. We got third down and 11, Jimmy.
Well, Del Valle's having a hard time handling this wet ball. It's third down a long ways, and that ball
nearly got picked off.
It nearly got picked off. Unfortunately for Del Valle, it was a wet ball, and the Georgetown players couldn't catch it either.
Yeah, definitely the wet ball helped, hurt and helped Del Valle there. But again, I think credit goes to Georgetown defense. They were well covered on that play.
Jimmy Carmichael told me that he never fumbled a football when he was at Brownwood and then at Texas Tech. Now, that's what he told me. His nose grew as he told me that. That's right.
Well, fellas, it's fourth down, and I believe that Del Valle is going to go for it. Early in the game, this is a real surprise move. I'm shocked that they would go for it at midfield on fourth down in 12 yards. And they are, and it's a pitchback, straight running play.
And boy, Georgetown was ready for him that time, weren't they?
I would really have to question that coaching move, Ted.
Well, I tell you, we won't see that very often. And for those that are watching this with their VCRs, run that back, because that is a play you will not see in the first quarter, early in the game, at midfield, fourth and and a mile
12 yards,
and going for it.
Well, and we're certainly not second-guessing the Rance Allison, the coach over at Del Valle, who is, by the way, a very fine individual, and it was nice to visit with him. But it does seem to be a little bit unusual, football strategy-wise. Somebody jumped off sides, Ted.
And he almost got back, but not quite.
Fellas, maybe he's thinking that he wasn't going to be close to midfield again for a while, so he'd just take advantage of it while he was there. I don't know. Seriously, I'd like to know what his thinking is on that. That kind of goes against most of your conservative coaching.
One aspect, though, Coach Al Hunt had indicated that with the wide-open version of this offense that they were going to have to make some adjustments early in the game. Perhaps he was expecting to catch him in a return formation.
I'll tell you what's different this year, fellows, than the opening game against Del Valle last year. First of all, the weather is obviously different. And secondly, if you will remember, last year we had not had a great deal of rain during the summer. And it was very dry, and the field over in Del Valle was not in great condition. It wasn't in bad condition, but it wasn't in great condition. If you look down on the field this year, the field is just in outstanding shape.
Oh, that's a big point, Cliff. And Ted, now think about this: if you're coaching a team that does not have a great deal of speed, and you're playing a team that does have a great deal of speed, how high would you cut that grass?
That's right. Work to your advantage.
I'd have it about ankle high. That time, Jaeger's on the keeper. He gets back to the line of scrimmage before he's pushed out of bounds on about the 49-yard line. It'll bring up 3rd down and 5.
Ted, that time, Del Valle did a good job in containing Jaeger.
Yes, they did. One thing that Cliff has shown in the preseason scrimmages is a versatile attack. He's a very excellent thrower. He's a very excellent runner. And Del Valle, from their scouting reports, know that he can spread things out, and they definitely have to respect his run and throw.
Well, we're going to find out how he's going to throw. 3rd down and 5. I'm looking forward to a pass right here, which shows you how much I know, because there's Wes Gilmore wide open. Gone. He may be all the way. He's only got one man to beat, and he's into the end zone. Touchdown number 2.
Oh, what a beautiful fake.
Obviously, Del Valle thought they were going to pass off.
Obviously so. And that was a really, really nice play on the part of the Georgetown Eagles.
Mike Gilmore is a 175-pound senior, and he had it in high gear and is an exciting young man.
That was an excellent fake that time, too, by Jaeger. I think he set up a lot of that. He came out to the near side, handling the ball real well, and it was the play was designed to go back against the grain, and it worked just like they drew it up on the chalkboard.
I believe that was Roger Castillo that kicked the extra point good. Our score, with 5:08 left in the first quarter, the Georgetown Eagles 14, the Del Valle Cardinals 0. We'll be back after this. As the Georgetown Eagles get ready to kick off again midway through the first quarter, after having scored on an outstanding play to make it 14-0. And Jimmy, what kind of play was that again?
Well, Cliff, that was a trap play. The quarterback spun out from under the center and came to the near side, and it was a delay trap going up the middle. I'm sorry we didn't get the number of either the guard or the tackle that led the trap up the middle, but he must have made one heck of a block, because there was a hole there that you could literally drive a car through. And the defense was thrown off so badly that they were so far out of position they didn't have a chance to catch the running back until he reached the goal line. That was a beautifully executed play.
Now, who was it on the extra point, Ted? I think I gave the wrong youngster's name out.
Blackwell is the extra point kicker, and he was true on that one too.
The kick goes again to Anthony Murrell. He brings it back up the middle, and he almost had some big yardage out of that. He still got out to the 32-yard line.
He nearly made it through the bubble that time.
This team scares you. They can do that at any minute. I know that Coach Hunt would sure like to get a bunch of points on the board. He's going to feel more comfortable that way, because this team can score at any time.
That's a very good point, Jimmy. With if this was 2 running teams against each other, that score could be significant. But with this type of offense and the type of approach that Del Valle takes, that is a very small cushion as far as the scoreboard.
time Atwood didn't find any room up the middle, but he went to the far side, and T.D. Taylor cut him off at the pass. Looked like he might have made about 2 yards on the play. It'll bring up 2nd down and 8.
I'll tell you what, every time Atwood gets 2 or 3 steps wide to the outside or into the secondary, he scares you to death because he has that kind of breakaway speed. He has the kind of breakaway speed that Andre Hill had last year.
No question, Kevin Atwood is one of the more talented players in Central Texas, but I want to point out the swarming effect of the Georgetown defense prevented that fine run from breaking for long yardage and held them to the 2 yards.
You know, we've talked about it on several occasions, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it more. We're going to certainly miss Andre Hill, but when you see a running play like that Mike Gilmore just made, it's going to make a lot of teams sit up and take notice and realize that there's a lot of facets to this Georgetown team this year. They're going to be a multifaceted team. They're not going to rely on any one ball player, and it's going to be certainly a team effort.
I agree with you. I think that probably this year we're going to have opponents of the Georgetown Eagles finding that the Eagles are harder to contain because they'll be more balanced. They can't just key in on one player like they did last year.
Again, it was Atwood up the middle, and he stopped by Wes Blackwell. Stopped just past the line of scrimmage. And fellas, we've got another rainstorm coming, and this one looks like it may be a little bit heavier than the one we've had previously.
You know, once again, we were talking about the way Del Valle handles the ball, that the rain can affect their offense, so we'll see if that has any effect this series or not.
But fellas, isn't it funny, because the last 2 times they've had the ball, it rained, and then they get ready to punt and the rain stops. Now that's an excellent tackle there by T.D. Taylor.
Boy, did T.D. Taylor stick him or what?
Right in the numbers. That's how you coach those ball players to make tackles. And Ted, I know you.
That ought to make the highlights film. I think we ought to put that in this year's highlights film. And speaking of the highlights film, we're delighted that this year we're going to be able to produce a highlights film that's going to be available to all these youngsters and parents at the end of, we know it's going to be a very successful season. And we're putting a lot of footage into it because it's a team effort, Ted.
Certainly is, and with the rain just literally pouring down, we do have Del Valle in a punting situation, and the whistle is blown.
I'll tell you what, Del Valle finds themselves backed up into a corner in more ways than one. They've got a passing attack under a driving rain, and they're 14 points down, and we're not even through the first quarter. So they're kind of under the gun.
Yes, they are, Cliff, and that's going to be something to keep in mind. Even as the rain stops, the field's going to be wet, and that can have a factor in this.
All right, there's a break in the action down on the field, so let's pause for this message. All right, we're back with 2:22 left in the first quarter, and we just had a 4th down run attempt, Jimmy.
Cliff, we did. It was 4th down and about 5 that's facing Del Valle, and in that heavy rainstorm, I'm not sure that the Del Valle coach wanted that center to give that long snap. That's hard on a wet ball. They snapped it short to the up back, who was Atwood. He went around left end, and he was stopped about 2 yards short of the 1st down. Stopped by a host of Georgetown players, led by, I believe it was John Zedlitz that was leading that tackle.
Now, Ted, let me ask you something about strategy. Was it better for him to go ahead and try to run it or kick it in a driving rainstorm? Because you know that Del Valle desperately wants to have an offensive drive going.
No question. I think perhaps he knows his kicking team much better than we do, and perhaps in that given situation, he made what he felt was the best decision, because perhaps the punt could have been even worse for them.
We were talking to Coach Ollison prior to the kickoff, and he is really trying hard to instill a quality program down there in Del Valle. And by and large, he's doing a good job. He's got these kids all pumped up and fired up. They may be still suffering from a little bit of inexperience, Jimmy.
Cliff, they may be. I tell you, it's hard to put in a run and shoot offense like they've got without a whole lot of experience on the team. I believe that time Georgetown left a little bit early. They're going to be called for backfield in motion.
Flags all over the field right now.
The running back was held for no gain, so Del Valle may go ahead and take that play. I see Coach Allison on the far side signaling to decline it, so there looks like they're going to decline the penalty. He's going to bring up 3rd down and 9 for Georgetown. And if it's possible, the rain just got a little bit harder.
Fellas, this looks like a frog strangler.
Could be worse. We could be going from game to game in that Channel 7 helicopter.
Could be worse. We could be down on the field.
That's true. Yeah, this rain doesn't bother us any, does it?
Where is David, by the way?
Pitch back to Gilmore. Great defensive play that time by Del Valle's number 25, Joe Love. And Joe Love was one of their big defensive performers last year. I can remember calling out his name several times during that game last year. It's going to bring up 4th down and 11 for Georgetown from the Del Valle 43-yard line, and I believe we'll see Georgetown's first punt. I don't think they'll take a chance. They're going to go ahead and try to get a pooch kick and back Del Valle up against their goal line.
Mike Grimes is Georgetown's punter and had a tremendous year last year, averaging over 40 yards a punt, and he's a dandy.
He's going for the corner. Did he get it? Oh, I think he just missed it. Another yard to the left, and he'd had it out about the 1-yard line, but it just trickled inside the cone.
Boy, very smart punt, though. That punt's impossible to return, and Jimmy said almost made it in.
And that's really the first series, fellas, that Georgetown has stalled on since the game started.
That's true. That 4th down, going for it on 4th down didn't hurt Del Valle that time. Ted, you noticed that you were talking about the field earlier. When that ball hit on the grass, it just died. I think it rolled about 2 yards. If that had been on AstroTurf, it'd still be rolling out in the parking lot.
Exactly. That soggy field really slows things down. I do want to comment, though, for the groundskeepers, they have this field in excellent condition. We've had about 2 weeks of rain. Lots of water has been on that field, and it's in very, very good shape.
Well, there's a timeout on the field. 23 seconds left in the first quarter, and the Georgetown Eagles are holding a 14-0 lead in this contest. And now it looks like, fellas, the rain is beginning to slack off. It looks like it's going to be one of those on-again, off-again rainstorms. And certainly, this has got to have some effect on the rhythm of both teams' offensive game plan.
It really does, Cliff. You've got both teams. Of course, the old saying goes, both teams are playing under the same conditions, but it requires a lot of adjustments, and perhaps a lot of adjustments both coaches wish they didn't have to be making, this being the first game of the season. They're interested in, especially with their younger players, to get the rhythm going on both offense and defense, and definitely the rain becomes a big factor.
And again, when you break the rhythm like that, Jimmy, this is where experience comes into play between the youngsters who are just now coming up from the junior varsity versus some of these seniors.
Well, that's true, Cliff. Here we go again. It's back to Atwood again. Atwood just can't get started. Georgetown's getting to him without giving him any leeway. If he gets into open field, he's going to be trouble. But so far, Georgetown's been real successful in getting to him before he's got to that point. And we're running out of time here in the first quarter. There's only 5 seconds left in the first quarter.
You know, consistently so far, it's been very difficult to single out who's made the specific tackle, because Monroe Metter, Rick Elsesser, Wayne Herndon, and Jason Jarrells has been in on almost all the tackles there at the line of scrimmage.
Well, fellas, during that first quarter, Georgetown took complete control of the ball game, scoring 2 touchdowns to lead 14-0. And as it looks right now, Georgetown is in fine control of this game here.
And here comes a helicopter rising over the visitor stands, and I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be in that helicopter in a rainstorm like this, fellas. That's not my idea of fun at all. We have something very unusual tonight, too, Jimmy, that I believe we're going to crown the football sweetheart in the very first game.
Cliff, it does seem a little bit early in the year, but I believe tonight at halftime they are going to crown the sweetheart. I don't know who she is. I think they try to keep that a little bit of a secret. However, I know that there are 3 sets of parents anyway that are anxiously awaiting news to see which one's daughter was crowned football sweetheart for 1991.
It means I didn't get it, right?
That means you didn't get it. I don't know. You may be a writing candidate. Sprint out pass. Good pass that time. completed out to about the 35-yard line. Past that time was caught by Murrell. Murrell was stopped by T.D. Taylor, but not until they made a first down. It'll be first down, Del Valle.
Well, we have 11:47 in the first half left to play. Del Valle has the ball, but Georgetown has the lead, 14-0.
That was only Del Valle's 6th pass attempt, so they haven't passed it quite as much as we thought they might. Sprint out this time. I believe he's going to run with it. Good block that time by Kevin Atwood. He was the intended receiver, and he turned around and laid an excellent block on a Georgetown defender. And that time, the quarterback, Eric White, was able to make about an 8-yard gain, 7-yard gain, bring up second down and 3.
Now, was that a prevent defense, Ted?
No, but that's just how you have to play the wide open attack of the run and shoot. You certainly get things spread out, and as we just saw there, it makes it very difficult to defend. And but I think
that's
Georgetown
right. It had all that look of it.
It certainly does.
Brandon Newsom almost made an excellent defensive play that time. He had a shot at Kevin Atwood deep in the backfield, but just missed him. Atwood was able to get around right in, but only able to get back to the line of scrimmage. Stop for no gain, brings up third down and 4.
And Ted, one thing has not changed since last year, and that's that swarming gang tackling style of the Georgetown Eagles on defense.
Yes, it is, Cliff, and that's very evident. It certainly has saved them or helped them prevent some potential long gainers. It's definitely a hallmark of their defense.
It's third down and a long 4 for Del Valle. Sprint out pass to the right side. And it's going to be very, very close. That time that pass was completed to Norwood. Stop was made by Wayne Herndon, and it's going to depend upon where they spot it, fellas. And I believe they spotted it for a first down. I see the referee signaling first down, Del Valle.
Do you think that they're playing off them a little bit too far, Ted?
No, I think in that case we had an isolation of an excellent athlete, and he just gave a little juke and made some extra yards on his own. I thought it was well covered.
Ted, are you surprised they haven't raised up and thrown deep yet?
Jimmy, I think they're going to be. We're going to be seeing that pretty soon. I think we're going to see that with this type of offense.
Boy, he's got a lot of running room there, and he's gone. I don't believe he's going to get the angle on him.
No, Lamont Norwood. Oh, we've got a flag on the play, though, fellas, and it looks like it's going to come back. It's going to be against Del Valle. We got a clip.
Clip and play.
And a beautiful run that time is going to be called all the way back, and not only called back, but we're going to have a penalty on top of it.
Boy, that takes a starch out of an offense that's been trying so very hard to get something going all game.
Yes, it does, Cliff. And at the same time, we've talked from the start of this game what a quick attack the Del Valle offense has, and there's a perfect illustration. Just about the time you think they're bottled up and contained, they can break the big one both pass and run. The way their offense is designed, it spreads the defense out, and they are definitely a threat at any point.
Well, thanks to David McCaskill, we have some first quarter statistics, and what it shows is that Georgetown on 7 carries had 56 yards rushing and 0 yards passing. And it looks like Del Valle had 10 carries for 23 yards on the ground and passing 2 of 6, completed for 23 yards. So in fact, they haven't passed as much certainly as they'd like to, Jimmy.
Cliff, that's right. I believe even a couple of those passes were called back because of penalties, so those really don't count. And that time, that was a beautiful pass right into the hands of Anthony Morrell, and he dropped it. I believe he may have heard footsteps, but it was incomplete. And the ball is spotted all the way back on the Del Valle 30-yard line. It'll bring up second down and 25.
You know what a difference one play makes, from having 6 points on the board to second down and 25 yards. What a difference.
And now, most assuredly, we will see a pass. Of course, just as sure as I say that, they'll run a running play on me. No, there you go.
Oh, there's the pass. That time is complete to number 6, James Harris. Harris is stopped by T.D. Taylor. And John Zetless teamed up for that tackle. It was a good completion all the way out to the Del Valle 42-yard line. He cuts the yardage down to 3rd down about 14 yards.
And yet we haven't seen the bomb yet, Ted, from Del Valle.
No, we haven't. We were talking about that a moment ago, and gosh, I guess if they're able to work their short passes and runs, they may try to stay with that.
Well, Georgetown defenders are giving the receivers plenty of room, and so far Del Valle's tried to take advantage of that by throwing short. Sooner or later, though, they're going to get impatient and they're going to go long. There's another excellent pass that time, complete to Chris Jones. Jones is all the way down to the Georgetown 32-yard line. I don't believe there's a flag on that play, and it's going to be 1st down Del Valle.
That one looked real good. He went right between 2 defenders.
Yes, he did. Chris Jones is an excellent ball player. He's 200 pounds. He has a great deal of speed, and a lot of credit goes to T.D. Taylor on that play as well as several other plays earlier in making a touchdown saving tackle.
Fellas, we still have a misty rain falling. Eric White is handling the ball, a wet ball, extremely well. He's throwing the ball fine. He's hitting the receivers right in the hands so far.
Oh, he's in trouble now, and he fumbles.
He fumbles it, and Del Valle recovers. That time White got awfully lucky. That ball was on the ground for a long time.
Yes, it was, Jimmy, and just as you were talking about the weather conditions, I think there's another instance of the wet ball being a part of the play.
I'll tell you what has helped, though, even though it has been raining, this excellent turf has kept firm footing, and they haven't torn up the grass yet at all.
Cliff, you're making a very good point that this field is in excellent condition, and if it weren't, we would be seeing a big part of that in the game as far as slipping and bad footing, but this field's in excellent shape.
Again, Atwood on the carry, that time stopped by T.D. Taylor. Stopped at the Georgetown 33-yard line. It'll be well short of the 1st down. In fact, it'll bring up 3rd down and about 8.
And that time Ben Lipsher had a first-line bead on him.
Georgetown's come very close on 4 or 5 plays of getting a big loss, and it's just a half a step slow.
Well, Mr. Nipser was in the backfield and looking at him up close and personal, and just barely did miss him.
It's not too bad to be a half a step slow on some of these guys. Atwood's got plenty of speed. I'd be more than just a half a step slow on him. The sprint out. He's going to go ahead and pass it. Good pass once again. White is throwing that ball very, very well.
That's what Del Valle likes to do, is to have the isolation on the 2-on-1 with the option of the run pass, and they're starting to work into the type of offense that they like to play.
According to my records, fellas, so far White is 9 out of 11, and he's throwing a damp ball. So I'm real impressed with his throwing ability so far.
That's a D-A-M-P.
Damp ball. You gotta be careful when you're West Texas.
That's right. I don't want that West Texas twang on that. A wet ball. Let's call it a wet football.
A wet football.
You know, so far, the Georgetown defense, while it's done a good job, has not been able to do a lot of successful heavy blitzing and put Del Valle under a lot of pressure from that point of view.
With the quick hit offense that they run, it makes the blitz very difficult.
Well, so far, Del Valle has maintained the ball control type of pass and shoot offense because all their passes have been under 10 yards. And they've done a reasonably good job of it. They've been stopped twice on 4th down plays, but other than that, they've had a couple of good drives, and this drive is an excellent example.
It really is.
Good pursuit that time by the Georgetown team.
We have a flag on the play, though.
I believe we're going to have a hold against the Del Valle Cardinals. Del Valle's had some big penalties this first half.
Yes, they have, and you know, we were talking about how the Del Valle offense spreads them out. John Zedlich did an excellent job of containment there. And as you notice, as they get further down the field, closer to the Georgetown end zone, that the defense is really able to make a lot better containment plays.
Penalties and turnovers have really kept Del Valle from getting any kind of a sustained offense going. like 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
You know, fellas, we had some questions about this defense in our mind. I know that Coach Hunt was pretty optimistic about his defense, but we lost some good players off that squad last year. I know there are some fine ball players on this one, but we were concerned about the amount of depth. But so far in the second scrimmage of the year that we saw, and so far tonight, this defense has really risen to the occasion, and they look very, very good.
That time, Ted, he looked before he caught the ball. He was downfield before he caught it.
He was ready to run.
That's right.
He was ready to put it in gear.
Well, that's his 4th incompletion, and 2 of those have hit the receivers right square in the hands. So, once again, Eric White's throwing the ball real well.
We have 6:04 left in the first half. The Georgetown Eagles are still holding on to a 14-0 lead, and there's timeout on the field. So while there's a timeout on the field, let's pause for this commercial message. Well, we're back with 6:04 left in the second quarter. The Georgetown Eagles holding on to a 14-0 lead over the Del Valle Cardinals, and this is the shakedown game for both teams. And right now, Del Valle's got a problem on their hands. They can't seem to get a sustained offense started.
But you know, Cliff, Georgetown has 2 first downs in this first half, both of them on touchdowns. And we have a flea flicker play here going deep, and it's caught. There was 4 or 5 players that misjudged that. It went over every one of their heads into the hands of a waiting Del Valle player, and the only reason he didn't score was he fell down on the 5-yard line.
That's right. It was a slow pass, too.
Well, it almost looked like it was an overthrown pass for the intended receiver, and by their...
It was an alley-oop pass. The only thing they forgot to call a fair catch down there.
Exactly.
And just when you said that the Del Valle offense was not chugging along full steam, here they are knocking on the door.
First down and goal to go from the 5-yard line. Yeah, they've had the ball the entire first half. Georgetown has 2 first downs, and they have not had the ball much at all. The ball's been in the hands of the Del Valle Cardinals all night. Del Valle better call a timeout. They're going to get a delay, and that is a terrible, terrible position on the field to get a delay of game penalty. They're on the 5-yard line, first and goal to go from the 5, and now they're going to back it up to the 10-yard line.
Now that drives a coach crazy, doesn't it, Ted?
Yes, it does. That's not the time to be having a delay of the game, because they have worked so hard to get down there and then to penalize their own selves.
And you know, while we keep talking about Del Valle shooting themselves in the foot with penalties and turnovers, the hard facts are that with a touchdown here by Del Valle, they're right back into this football contest.
You know, even though they got the delay of game penalty, they went ahead and took a timeout, which is a little bit unusual. It seems like they've wasted a timeout here.
Well, maybe they thought that they needed to regroup and get some new strategy. This is where Georgetown traditionally has been very, very tough.
We're seeing the signal from referee Marcin Cottle. The officials for tonight's game are from the Temple chapter. The referee is Marcin Cottle, and we'll set the rest of them as the game goes on.
By the way, fellas, before I forget, I want to mention that we're delighted once again this year as our partner in this telecast to have Dan Knight on board with us.
And after that, the handoff is to Atwood, and he swarmed under for about a 4-yard loss. Georgetown took advantage of the timeout, and they were ready for that play.
And as I said before, this is where Georgetown gets pretty tough.
Del Valle had a first and goal to go from the 5, and now they're looking at a second and goal to go from the 15. I'd say it's a fair bet, fellas. We're going to see a pass play right here. It gets more difficult down here the closer you get to the goal line to throw the pass, because the land area is compressed so much. Excellent play that time by Rich Elsasser. Rich caught Ayers White, the quarterback, for a deep loss all the way back to the 27-yard line.
Excellent pass rush by Rick Elsasser, and Chad Sullivan was also in there making pressure, and that's the type of defense that wins the ball games.
So the Del Valle Cardinals go from knocking on the goal line door to a 3rd and 28 situation.
They're going in the wrong direction. They did such a good job to get it down to the 5, and now then they've lost 23 yards in the last 2 plays.
They're on the Georgetown Eagle, what, 27, Jimmy?
27, 28-yard line.
There they go with a sweep.
And the pitch that time goes to Lamont Norwood. Norwood gets just about to the line of scrimmage, maybe up to the 25-yard line.
And give the Georgetown defense credit where credit's due. They have tightened up and have not given that kind of flexible yardage that allowed Del Valle to get down to the goal line in the first place.
You know, they did that last year, fellas. They tend to bend quite a bit, but wouldn't break. They'd let the other team get down in close to scoring territory. Then they'd stiffen up, and they would hold the team on many, many occasions. We saw them 4th down and goal to go and not give up a touchdown.
You know, another trademark of the Georgetown Eagles last year, and I'm beginning to see the same trademark this year, is they don't seem to get rattled under pressure situations. They play well under pressure.
They're a very well coached, fundamentally very sound team.
Well, it's 4th down and goal to go. And that pass that time was broken up by John Zedlitz, and he had a lot of green grass in front of him if he could have held on to it. But anyway,
John saw 6, didn't he? Good effort on his part. And he was backed up, Ted, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah.
When he went for the interception, he had another man behind him to cover.
Well, we saw an excellent play there involving both the defensive line as well as the defensive secondary. There was excellent pressure on him. Everybody was well contained, and that's what you ask from a defensive standpoint.
Well, those last 4 defensive plays were 4 of Georgetown's best tonight. They looked excellent once they let Del Valle get down to the 5-yard line.
Okay, now here we have Del Valle lining up in a punt formation, but in fact, will they punt? We've come to look at...
I believe that was 4th down, so the ball did go over. Georgetown had the ball, and that's only Georgetown's.
You're right. Well, that's the first game.
That's true. That's first game.
All I saw was the Del Valle man back here deep. I didn't look down on the line of scrimmage.
Well, this Del Valle team, you can't be too sure at any one time.
That is true.
You never know.
Their formations are, I don't think we've seen the same one twice.
Well, you know, these Georgetown Eagles may be having first game butterflies and making mistakes, and that'll probably be my last mistake for the entire season.
Well, that was only their 5th play for the line of scrimmage this first half. And Georgetown has been on defense the entire night, but yet they're still up 14-0. That time the pitch back went to Chris Kincaid. Kincaid made about 2 on the play, brings up 3rd down and 8. The ball is on the Georgetown 27-yard line.
Now, Al Hunt is still trying to establish a solid running game, isn't he, Ted?
No question. I think as the game progresses, we're going to see a pretty evenly called run-pass attack.
We've got Roger Castillo split out to the near side. In the backfield's Wes Blackwell and Mike Gilmore. Jagers fakes, sprints out to the right. Passes in the area of 2 Georgetown Eagles. It looked like it may have been intended for Wes Blackwell, but it was a little bit high. It will bring up 4th down and about 8, and I believe Georgetown